Don't be scared to mess up. Don't be scared to also do things that might not please other people. Just be mindful to respect what you were given, I would say. But don't be scared to try. You need to try and to mess up to be able to get to a point where it's actually starting to look like something nice. And from that, you will keep going and it would not look just nice, you would start looking amazing. So that's
Hey, all right. So I am now on the line with a Mr. Steve Delore, who him and his partner are international New York-based award-winning Kizomba and Semba dancers and instructors. You were born in Guadalupe, but you currently live in New York City. Is that correct?
Yes, I was born in Paris, but I lived most of my life in Paris, but I'm very close to my little island, Guadeloupe. So I used to spend every summers with my grandparents over there. Yeah.
Okay, okay, I got you. I got you, man. How are you doing today, Steve?
I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, confined home. But I can't complain. I work from home. I dance from home. I have a new space. So I'm enjoying the moving process. I'm enjoying also setting the environment that I want to set. Also have some space to dance and freely express myself. So that's pretty good. I can't complain, to be honest with you, man.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome, bro. I think, man, to start this interview up, man, I would love to hear about your childhood growing up in Paris, man. What
Uh-huh.
was that like for you?
What was it like for me to grow up in Paris? Pretty simple. I grew up in next to Paris in Paris boroughs, the 93 department, which is known to be in movies the gangsta department, kind of what Brooklyn is to New York to some degree. Yeah, born and raised in Paris. Was raised by my mom. Grew up under a Caribbean house. And been lucky to have someone that was so loving and so caring, that took care of me, like any Caribbean woman would take care of their son. Yeah, I grew up with a lot of different ethnicities, a lot of different origin around me. Also, growing in this type of neighborhood, you are in contact with a different origin, different ethnicities. So that was quite amazing to actually interact with so many people. A lot of people from African countries, from of course the French Caribbeans, from North African countries, Algeria, Morocco. So one of the things, and kind of to relate to this interview, is all of the influences that was brought growing up next to Paris, in terms of music, in terms of food, in terms of cultural differences that you grew up with, and you don't even realize that they are not part of your culture, but you start actually learning about them and appreciating to even be able to interact with those.
No, I understand that, man. I definitely understand that. It's like a little melting pot.
Exactly.
Let me ask you this real quick, but I'm very curious to hear, man. What was it like growing up in that household? With your mother from the Caribbean. What was that household like?
Very simple. I think for like I would say what could be called a very common, like youth yeah, common education when it comes to, like a lot of people from the Caribbean are raised, especially when you have your parents moving from the Caribbean island to what we call the metropole, France. We make a distinction between the Caribbean island, which is French, but you have a lot of migration happening from parents who are trying to get some educations or get a work that is might be a bit stable. That we get on the islands. So they come to Paris, they go to Lyon, they go to Marseille, Lille, all of the big cities in France. So that's what my mom did in her mid 20s, and she was working there. She got me at some point, and yeah, growing up in Paris was, I mean, it was very for me. It was very like thinking about the memories of my childhood. It was very caring. Of course, like you have some challenges. I was not. We were in pretty poor family. My mom was the only one taking care of myself. So you grow up into a one bed, one. How you said it's a studio. You get to learn, and you get to learn to live in this space with your mom, and I actually don't realize that people were not living in bigger space than what I had. So I was really, I've always appreciated what I had, and I never realized that that was maybe less than what other people had. So yeah, I feel really lucky when it comes to the roof, under the roof of this house. Caribbean family, Caribbean cultures. My mom is religious, so Sunday we would be cleaning the house all day, playing some zouk music or some Afro zouk music. Most of the time, it would actually be Afro zouk music. We had those cassettes at the time that we had a specific cassette that we would play only for the Sunday. So I knew the lyrics by heart. I knew every single song, every single intonation of the voice of the singers. So yes, that was kind of what I grew up with. And I can now kind of relate to this in my Kizomba journey with all of this music that I used to listen to on Sundays after church, and kind of appreciating a different way, I would say. So yes, that's for the biggest part. That's what my childhood was. I don't have siblings. I'm a single child, but I do have a pretty big family. I have a lot of cousins in the Caribbean. I have my grandmother, my uncles that took care of me, some of my cousins in France as well that I grew up with. So when I was not in Paris, or every year, I would go to during the summer, I would go to the Caribbean to spend some time with my grandmother, and that also, without realizing it, that's also how you dive into your Caribbean cultures. So that's kind of how I was a bit more exposed to what it is to grow up in the Caribbean, and to kind of relate a bit more to this Caribbean life that is very different from where you grow when you grow up in Paris or in France in general. So I was lucky to have the chance to have both, being able to have Western cultures to some degree, living in Paris, but also a more Caribbean, a more uh, African cultures, if I can say this that way, even though I cannot talk as an African because it's very, yeah, there is a distinction between Caribbean cultures and African culture, but you can see a lot of connections and a lot of links. So that's what those trips, vacations to Guadeloupe was giving me, the ability to connect with my roots to some degree.
Okay, I understand that, man. I definitely do. You kind of
Hey kid, come here. Hey, if you could like and subscribe for the channel, that'd be amazing. Let's get back to the show.
uh, you kind of you kind of already touched upon it, man. But tell me, how important was music in your household? As a child.
Uh, I don't know if there is a spectrum. Now I think with like being a bit older, I can realize how important how the space or the weight of music was. But when you grow up, you don't realize that's what you live by every day. Like you would just listen, or don't even listen. Your parents would play music. Your uncles would come around, come visit, spend the Sunday afternoon, eat, make food. They would be dancing, whining, dancing on sukus, dancing on dombolo. Afro zouk was yeah, Afro zouk was huge when I was a kid, even bigger than zouk. That's very common for people of my age, but we tend to not like Zouk when we were a child. Like I hated Zouk when I was a kid. For me, it was like, oh no, that's for old people. We don't listen to such a thing. I was really into Afro Zouk, into a bit older Cabo Zouk. So yeah, that like music was there all the time, but you just don't realize it until you are kind of moving away from that space and you realize, oh wow, actually music was playing a much bigger, much important space, a place than I thought it was.
Understand that, man. The music, yeah, music can be very influential, man, in your younger
Mm,
years. So I definitely understand
completely,
that,
completely.
man. Do you remember, what were some of your childhood hobbies, man? What did you enjoy doing as a child?
I did a lot of sports. Did a lot of sports, starting with soccer back in 96, 97. I was playing soccer. 98, France won the World Cup. So as soon as the World Cup ended, that was July 2nd or July 3rd. The next day, that or the next week, that's when you had the soccer clubs open. They have their like how you call this open days where like you come and you just going to play with other kids and you're gonna have the coaches and the trainer looking for the best player to recruit them for the next season. So like unlike any other years, because the France had won that year, like it was maybe 10 times the amount of kids than you usually have. So I played a lot of soccer at this time. After I moved from soccer to karate, my uncle is a world champion of karate. So I grew up with still looking at him, and I was impressed. So I naturally fell in karate for 6, 7 years. And from this, I spent a lot of time in athleticism. Soccer and athleticism were really the two very athletic sports that I did. Volleyball for a couple of years, and from then I spent 10 years playing table tennis, which is a like a huge change, but something that I discovered when I got to middle school that I loved. And from then, I just wanted to play it every day. So I started to play and train, and I played for 10 years. I did some regional and national tournaments until I actually stopped to move to New York 7 years ago.
Okay, man, you got quite the background, bro. That's awesome, bro. So this, you're growing up in Paris, man. You have a plethora of hobbies and everything, man. I'm curious, were you was dancing always a part of your life, or is this something more recent?
No, no, no. I started to dance when I moved to New York. I've never danced any dance before. Kizomba was unknown to me 2 months before I moved to the US. Kizomba is a dance. The music, I didn't know it under the term Kizomba, but I knew of the Kizomba umbrella music. So no, dance was unknown. I just like to move like any kid, growing up on hip hop, French rap, dancehall, reggae, raga. Obviously, like you move by yourself, but I didn't have any type of move that was coherent enough for me to call myself like anything close to a dancer. So yeah, it's really when I moved to the US and started dancing kizomba that everything started.
Okay, sure enough, bro. I don't think I've ever had someone who, I guess was passionate about table tennis, man. So let's talk about that, bro. You got into table tennis. You said you played for 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
Okay, so I guess and were you say when you say play for 10 years, do you mean like amateur, or like professional? What do you mean?
I would say semi-professional. So I started table tennis because I had hurt myself in athleticism. The abductor, I don't know how you call those muscles, but I couldn't really like. I've done soccer and athleticism for a long time, and some of the my favorite disciplines in athleticism, I just couldn't do them at the same potential. At the time, I was also doing a lot of regional competitions. I've always been a very big competitor, so every sport that I was doing, I was really into it. So yeah, after I kind of stopped running, I was playing with a friend in middle school. We had some table outside in the courtyard. So we would play, and it stuck with me for a little while. So the next year, or when the next semester started, that's when also the sports club, start reopening registration. So I just apply. I went to start playing, and it started like this. I was in an amazing club, very family oriented, different backgrounds, but like a great vibes, amazing vibes, and that's. I think that any sport I would have done with the same type of individuals, I would have wanted to stay and stick with them. So I think that the couple of things that drove my interest is like I was curious about the sports, and I was also in a very warm environment. So that's how I started. That was what 2000. 2000. I could not remember the year, but I would say 2004, 2005 when I start playing. Yeah, around that time. Yeah, around that time, I would say 2004. So a couple of years to learn, and I had a pretty good physical condition, so I was able to really do like side notes. As much as table tennis doesn't look like a difficult sport, it's actually a very challenging
Bro,
sport.
of course.
Physically wise, yeah, you have to be able to like top spin the ball over 100 times on the game, you know. So it's I compare it some degree to boxing because you repeat a lot of movement with the arm that are very cardio driven. So yeah, I was good physically, and then I learned to appreciate the different aspects of the game, of the sport. Learn also to become a judge. I wanted to join. I wanted to train. So all of this, little by little, drove my interest into focusing more on training and competing. And over the years, I started to compete at regional level. So in the center of France and at the national level in all France and any other region outside of the France territory. Did a few competitions. I've never, aside as a junior, I went and I think I did like finalist in the national, which is like the top, I don't know, the top 200 kids of the country. I think that was my best perf. After that, as a senior, when I started to play with the first team of the club, the team A of the club, we were more at a regional level. So that would be like to compare to the US, that would be at a state level, and that was good. That was fun. We had a lot of fun. It's a very physical sport. The training were intense, and I enjoyed it. And I always had a lot of fun just playing around with my friend, kidding around because they would come and see me and they would like, you don't have any physics. You can't even like I don't know. You can't even run, and I would beat them every single time. So it was always a very competitive environment and also a very warm environment that I enjoy on every single aspect. But I reached a point where I was like, I'm not improving at the pace I want anymore. Do I really want to continue? I tried to change club to a club that was at a national level. The team was a national, like team number 4 of the country. But it was kind of too late for me. I had lost this passion of really challenging myself for that sport. So yeah, after this, Kizomba came in in the light, and that's how everything started.
Okay, okay. So, yeah, that's a really good transition, man. You said you didn't learn about Kizuma till you came to New York, I guess, America. What made you, move from, I guess, Paris or France to New York? Why did
Uh-huh.
that come about?
So from an education perspective, at the time, 2012, 2013, I was in an engineering school, which is master's degree. So I graduated from my engineering school, got my master's degree, and we have a lot of different programs that are offered to us in France, which is amazing from my perspective. One of those is actually to get a professional experience abroad. So you basically work for a French company, but in another country, and that's in any country of almost every country of the world. And I've always wanted to come to the US. 2 years later, 2 years earlier, sorry, I had done a road trip with my friends. I had loved New York. We went to Atlantic City, so I was like, yeah, let me try to spend like 12 months and see if I enjoy it. For me, it was a win-win. Like you work for a year for a company, you have a lot of free time also to do other things and discover another culture. So that's what drove me to move to the US, and also this interest of like discovering another country. I really wanted to get out of France and discover another culture that was still pretty close to the French culture to some degree. So that for me, that was, yeah, the win-win.
I definitely understand that, bro. I definitely do. I'm curious, man. Tell me this. Growing up in Paris, in Paris and visiting Guadalupe.
Mhm.
What was that first year like when moving to New York? What was that like, man, coming to a completely new continent, man, where I imagine you didn't have a lot of family there, did you?
No, no, not at all.
What was that like for you?
I will split it in two parts. The first part, the first 3 months, acclimatation. It was very difficult. I didn't know anybody. I had one of my friends who also did an internship. He did an international internship in New York, and he was basically finishing his internship when I arrived to New York. So he kind of helped me kind of get around. But he left a few weeks after that, so I was by myself. I didn't know anybody. I found an amazing apartment with three other roommates, Black American guys, amazing. I really wanted to be with American folks because I wanted to improve my English. My English was extremely bad at the time. It's still bad. It was worse. So yeah, I wanted to be in a very English-oriented environment, and those three people were amazing. It just took me about 2 3 months to acclimate myself, and those 2 3 first months were extremely difficult. When you don't know anybody, you also have like the barrier language. You have to some degree a cultural language because as much as Paris and New York can be similar, they are very different on a lot of aspects. So that was a challenge. And what happened, I was like on not depressing, but to some degree, I was quite sad at the time. So I was leaving. I had taken like a week November 20th. This was November 2013. I took a week off from my job in New York at the time, flew to the Caribbean to spend 1 week with my aunt. That was her birthday. And I remember telling myself, okay, like, dude, you in New York, you're in the place you've always wanted to be. You can't be sad. You can't be depressed about it. So take your trip, enjoy the Caribbean, and when you come back, make sure that you enjoy the 9 months that you have left. So that's what happened. I came back, and from that moment, everything kind of opened the doors. That's when I really started dancing. That's when I met Kizomba friends, and I also met my partner, which later on became my dance partner. That's kind of like how things evolved into the part two of a much more enjoyable first year in the US.
Hey, man, that's intense, bro. Yeah, coming to a new culture, man, and not really knowing anybody, man. I definitely understand how that can be difficult, bro.
Mhm.
I definitely understand that, man. And it takes a lot of, like, I guess, courage or desire to even want to do that, man. So that's really cool, man.
Thanks, man.
Of course, bro. So yeah, you moved to New York, man. Yeah, I guess we'll just get right into it. Man. Tell me, how did you get introduced to Kizomba? How did that come about?
So that was, I moved to New York August 2nd, 2013. On July 21st, I had thrown go away party at my uncle's place. I begged my uncle, please, please, Tio, like, give me your place for the night. I just want to have my best friends coming over and just us to have a good time together. So yeah, he left. He gave me his keys, and I invited my friend, made some food, bucket, Caribbean dish, a lot of like food that I wanted to cook for them. And yeah, we were playing around, we were like teasing each other, and we start like, I don't know, dancing and looking for some choreographies online, looking for some steps online. And I don't recall how this happened, but we ended up watching this now number one known video, which is Pikachu, which is a Kizomba song by Sequato Pedro, which at the time was danced by Albir and Sarah Lopez. And the video is known by everybody. It's no secret. And I was like, wow, look at this girl. I want to dance this dance. That's kind of how it started. It's really okay. I saw this. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm moving to another country. The first thing I'm gonna do is to try to find a place where I can learn and dance and learn this dance and start like dancing socially. And I moved to New York the following months. It took me like a month to like kind of, yeah, I started dancing. I started my first class September 14 or September 17, I don't remember. There is this big dance studio in New York called, I think it's Pierre Canela. I'm not sure. Pierre Canela, who was offering a 3 months pass. Yeah, 3 months pass for $80, where you could dance any type of dance, and Kizomba was one of them. So that's basically how I started dancing my first steps.
Okay, real quick, man. Tell me, who was your first Kizomba instructor?
That's uh, That's a very challenging question to ask. My first class, the first person that taught me something is called T-Boy, T-Boy Pelev.
Yeah,
He's
I know T
actually
Boy. Yeah, I know T Boy.
he's actually in the US now, and he was at the time he was teaching at a festival in New Jersey that was early September, and I knew his friends, so they came to my place, and he was like, "Yeah, let me just show you some step. We're gonna play some songs," and he started to play some Semba for me, and I loved it. I was like dying. I didn't know much move, but I just wanted to kind of like play around. So he was the first instructors teaching me a few steps. But when I joined Pierre Canela, that's when I really started to take classes. And that was with David Campos. David, which is a known and renowned instructor in New York. He's been dancing for quite a long. And I took a few months of classes with him at the studio with dozen of other students. That was from September till December on a regular basis. I was going like 4 times a week, basically. Um, and from that moment, I would say that I shifted and started to take class with Jeffrey Kizomba, which is also extremely known as one of the best instructors in the US. And that's really the one who builds my foundations when it comes to the dance. And my love for it. He had a different pedagogy. David Campos has a more how can I say that? It's a different dance style that David Campos was offering, which is a more what we would associate now to ghetto zouk, while Jeffrey tend to be associated more to what I'm also associating now, which is Kizomba authentic. So from the music that he would be using to the steps that he would be teaching and how he would be teaching the steps. So that was very different, two different schools, but the two brought me or taught me things. But I would say that my Kizomba journey really grew flourish when I started to dance with Jeffrey. That was mind blowing.
Okay, yeah, I understand that, bro. And you kind of spoke on it, man. But tell me this, man. Tell me about your beginner stage learning Kizumba. What was that? That beginner stage like for you?
A bit challenging, more for the confidence aspect. I remember my first classes that was on the Wednesday afternoon or not like early evening 6 p.m. And at the time there would be and the Wednesday and the Thursday. So I would go to two classes. And at the time on the Thursday evenings, there would be a social, a Kizomba social at a place that's called Favela Cubana. They don't host anymore Kizomba, unfortunately, but at the time that was the number one spot that you would go to. And I remember going for the first social after like 1 week of classes and being rejected by half of the women in the bar. So that was extremely difficult because like you don't know how to dance. You're also very scared to ask someone to dance, and when you have take the courage to do so, you are rejected. So at the time, he was like, "Oh, I'm a bad dancer. Like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this." But I would say that I was able to learn very quickly, and I had also a lot. I have also a lot of energy in my dance, so I would yeah, I would learn the step. I would do a few steps. I step on some woman's toes a few times. Shout out to Alicia, which is one of the first person I danced at the social with. But that was yeah, that was a required path, I would say. Everybody goes through this. When you start learning and you go out of your comfort zone, the classroom, you go out into the social. You are going to have this stress, this anxiety of asking someone to dance, maybe being rejected, and also badly dancing with that partner person. So yes, that was the beginning.
I understand, bro. I definitely understand, and I'll say for myself at least, I've definitely stepped on toes, man. So you are not alone on that. So I understand that, bro. Earlier you said that you were able to learn it pretty quickly, and I wanted to. I was gonna actually bring this up earlier. Do you think that you were able to grasp the dance, quicker or easier than others? Do you think that's due to the fact that you grew up listening to Zouk music and like the precursors to it as far as the music?
Yes, definitely. Two reasons: the music, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't know of Kizomba as a dance before summer 2013. When I started to take class with Jeffrey, he played some songs that I had never heard before, but the melody was familiar. um, the songs that I would hear at the social. I remember dancing on some Kizomba song I had never heard, and at some point, the DJ Medina would switch and play a Zouk song. And I was like in the middle of the social. I was mind blown. I was screaming on the dance floor because I go, "Oh, that's my music! Like that's things I grew up with." And people would look at me like, "Who is this dude? What is he talking about?" And I realized that I was the only French Caribbean around. Only after I realized that there was a lot of Haitian and they knew about Zouk, but not so many people knew about Zouk and how Zouk and Kizomba and Semba are to some degree connected and have the same influence. So I learned quickly because I had danced Zouk with my parents, with my grandparents, with my aunt growing up. I had the rhythm. I knew of the music. So I didn't have any challenges understanding the music, the mechanism um, of the music to dance on it. It was kind of given for me. The challenge was just basically to learn the step and to apply the step on the music the way I want to apply them on the music.
get you, bro. I definitely get you, man. And yeah, growing up with it, man, being familiar with the music, is it's kind of like a little cheat code, I guess, for dancing, man. So I definitely understand that, bro.
Yeah.
I definitely understand that. And so, real quick, when did you first start? I guess what year was it where you kind of got introduced to Kizumba? How long ago was that?
We're in 2020, that was 2013, that was six and a
Okay.
half years ago. Yeah.
Okay, so 2013, man. So you get introduced to it, and um, I guess is it pretty much love at first sight for you? Do you fall in love with it and just continue it throughout?
The music was, I think, there is one belief that I have is like if you dive in a dance so deeply, it's because the music, you really feel the music, you really connect with the music. You cannot dance a dance properly or deeply if you don't enjoy the music. And I think that what was easier for me and why my learning went much faster than others, especially in the first year, was because I knew of the music, I knew the meaning of the music. Some Kizomba song at the time were like Kabozouk or Afrozouk music, what we would actually the genre would be Kabozouk or Afrozouk. That music that I knew, that music that even though they are not in French, they are not in Creole, I could understand. So in my way of dancing, I was already able to do some type of interpretation. And that really drove my learning at a much faster pace than what I would see other students pace at that time.
Okay, I understand that, bro. I definitely understand that, man. So, say you're living in New York, learning Kizumba, and if I'm not mistaken, you said you were only gonna stay in New York for a year. Is that right?
That's correct,
Okay.
yeah.
So, I mean, did you move back home, or did your plans change?
So my program, the internship or the work that I was doing had a maximum extension of 6 additional months. So I applied for this extension, I got it. So I went from 12 months to 18 months. However, at the end of the 18 months, I had to go back to France. But at that time, I had started another project, a side project in the US, building a service, a company, but at the time it was just like a little project on the side that became a startup. And after the 18 months, I really wanted to actually keep working with the team. So I went back to France for 4 months. I tried to find ways to get a visa to come back, and that's when I applied for a grad school here to have a second master degree, which would allow me to be a student for 2 years and also be able to work afterwards, staying in the US. So that's what I did. Went from going back to Paris in 2015, coming back August 2015 to start school in September of 2015, and starting keep continuing my US journey at that time, basically.
Sure enough, man. I definitely understand that, bro. So yeah, so you move back home and you come back.
Mhm.
Um, let me ask you this, man. You go home for a while.
Yeah.
I've spoken to a few Kizomba instructors in Paris, man, but I guess what is your opinion of the Kizomba and France and Paris? What does that seem like over there?
Um, Without being arrogant, one of the best scene in the world. Um, Not a scene that is as upfront, as visible as other scenes. But for people who know of the Kizomba, I'm really talking about Kizomba, authentic Kizomba, because in Europe we tend to call Kizomba or urban keys, we tend to like interchange them. But the Kizomba scene, the authentic scene in Paris was huge at the time, but it was much more underground. You will not have so many parties going on every single weekend. You would have a few, but if you knew the people, if you had some friends that were dancing, you would get to these parties and like look at the look at the dance floor and see amazing people dancing who now, for half of them, are either teaching or they competed or they are renowned as like this generation of amazing dancers that we used to have in Paris, that we still have to some degree in Paris.
Okay, let me ask you this one. I'm curious to know: can you put into words, I guess, the differences in dancers? So the dancers in New York
Mhm.
and the dancers in Paris. Is there? Are you able to put into words how they're different or how they're similar in any way?
I think that there are more, I mean, we all dancers, so we have this point in common. But when it comes to differences, the first one would be the cultural difference. Back in 2013, 2014, 2015 in New York, people dancing in New York for the vast majority were American folks or New Yorkers with an American cultures. If you compare of Paris or France in general, that was Caribbean people, Haitian, people from Cape Verde. We also have a pretty big community of Cape Verdean. So all of those people, they already knew about the music. So like me, they were already comfortable dancing. That's why the level was so amazing. You would see people doing such a move because it was natural. You also have fairly big Angolan community. You have a lot of Angolan as well in Paris. So a lot of them, not a lot, but a few of them were teaching. A couple of them were teaching, and naturally their level was so high that the students that they were teaching to also would learn fast and would be of amazing quality. Whereas in New York, at this time, we didn't have, like, New York had this delay with Europe. New York was maybe the third third wave of Kizomba. So you would have at the time Jeffrey was teaching, you had David Campos, you had Kizomba NYC. But when it comes to authentic Kizomba, you only really had Jeffrey and to some degree Kizomba NYC. But Jeffrey was the reference. So you didn't have much diversity for you to learn and to get inspiration from. Unlike in Paris, you would go to a party, you would see two teachers dancing, you go to another party, you would see other teachers. So you would have so much inspiration that your dance would grow from all of those connections. Whereas here, you only were limited with one amazing instructors, but single instructors in New York. So naturally, that's kind of delays the maturity of the scene from my perspective, as opposed to Paris.
I understand that, bro. I definitely understand that, man. And so, I guess that comes back to, I guess your journey, man. You get back to New York, man, and I guess when or how does the idea of you becoming a teacher, how does that come about?
Ooh, that come much later. 2013, 2014, I was training a lot with Jeffrey. I wanted to compete. I've always wanted to compete. I like competition. I'm a huge competitor. So 2014, fall 2014, there was this um, Kizomba competition in New Jersey that's called Kizomba Open that still exists. And they were doing the US round, so you would have a round in most countries, and you would select the best couple of each country, and they would go to the international Open in Madrid few months later. So in 2014, I was still kind of like tippy-toeing in my dance, but I had a lot of energy, and I just started to dance with my partner. She has a much better musicality, and she's a dancer. She danced a lot before, so we were able to complement each other. I was bringing the energy, she was bringing the quality and the cleanness, and so we started to train much more regularly with Jeffrey, and he really mentored us to train for the competition. We competed in New Jersey. Out of nowhere, we won that year, despite me crying in the hallway because I had messed up steps and I was so mad. And you had also a good couples competing. You had Mark Brewer at the time, which was for me an icon. Looking at him and competing against him was just like had I was. It was so humbling for me, but I was scared. But out of nowhere, we won that year. 2 months later, we were sent to Italy, to Spain, Madrid, to do the international round, and we came up with a good choreography that we loved, that I had really enjoyed practicing. So my energy when we performed with our energy was amazing. And once again, out of nowhere, we took the second place of the competition. So that really shifted, I guess, the pressure, the weight that now Kizomba and us were representing for the US. Um, so at that point, we also, the winners and the second place winner, would also have the chance to teach for the rest of the weekend at the Open, during the Open. So it's a competition slash festival. So on the Saturday you had the competition, and the Sunday you would have teaching classes. And we would teach a class if we were part of the top two couples. So we taught our first class, we loved it. And coming back to the US after that, that's kind of how it started. Jeffrey at the time was also trying to build a team, Team Semba, I think Team Semba, which was basically a group of people that would travel to perform, but also to teach. So we started like this. We started to teach that way. And from that, it was just a natural. I've always liked to teach. I used to teach table tennis. Also, I used to teach some classes, some like education classes as well. So that was natural to some degree. Although we were not ready. It took us a few months, to not say a year, to really like become much more familiar with the role of teachers and instructors.
Okay, and I understand that, man. Not all dancers are great teachers, and not all teachers are great dancers. It's like two
Absolutely,
separate
absolutely.
skills.
Yep.
I definitely want to talk about that, man. But tell me, man, real quick, man, tell me, how did you meet your dance partner? Is it Lady Marine?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct. That's
And how
correct.
did you meet her?
Through a social at the time, so that was a few months after I started dancing. There was a couple of socials, so I talked about Favela Cubana, and there was another one on Tuesday that's called Kenya. I hope it still exists now with the pandemic. I don't know what's gonna be, but it was still around last year and last time I went, organized by David Campos, and that was a huge social where you would have mostly David Campos students coming around. So that's how I met her. I met a few other friends. Cassie, which is known for an amazing move, compa dancer, kizomba dancer, and Amanda and Flo. We had built this group of five of us dancing every single night, going out every single night together to dance, and that's kind of how we became very close. And down the line, I started to practice with Maren. That was almost a year later, starting to practice with Maren, and she wanted to compete. She wanted to go to Spain. I wanted to compete. So we were like, okay, let's do this together. We trained for Jersey. We won. We went to Madrid. We took the second place. We came back, and it worked. Yeah, it worked. So let's keep going. Let's keep competing together, and let's keep teaching together. And that's what happened basically.
Okay, okay, I get you. I get you, bro. That's really cool, man. So yeah, I guess progressing, man. Tell me, man. Tell me about that first year learning to teach. What was your beginner stage like learning to teach?
Beginner stage learning to teach. What was so the first teaching experience were at festivals, weekenders. There were not weekly classes. At the time, we were not really familiar with the different like type of classes that you could offer, but we were just reached out by people reach out to us to teach. So we did like a weekender in New York, and the next day we were in Detroit for another Kizomba festival organized by Mark Brewer at the time. So we basically went with trying to build a class, a lesson class that I think would showcase what we had done competing, but also how we got all the way from learning step to competing. And what I mean by this is we had like a very energetic style with a lot of playfulness. So we built our teaching around this playfulness, this provocation. That was like every time we would start teaching, we say like Semba is like a fight, a provocation between your partner and you. So you want to build from that. And we were using this competition spirit to help people understand how they can basically enjoy the dance. So that was our way to kind of cheat because we didn't have a pedagogy at the time. We didn't know how to go around like talking about the basics or talking about the fundamental of the dance, the music, the root of the movement, the body mechanics. All of this was not things that we had even grasped at the time. What we knew about was we could dance, we could showcase what we were able to do, and we could also break down how we were able to do it. So we went with this approach until we get to a point where we were booked for bigger festivals with instructors or with organizers that knew about Kizomba, and we'd be like, okay, I love you guys, but you guys need to learn how to teach fundamentals, learn how to teach body mechanics. And that's how we start training. That's how also we start teaching regular classes in Philadelphia to help us really understand how to learn this pedagogy and be able to share those knowledge with students.
Yeah, that's important, man. That's just super important. And I think it's probably something that's not really often talked about, man. It's like I said earlier, being good at something doesn't mean that you're automatically a great teacher, right?
Yeah.
So
That's especially in the dances nowadays, and that was one of the warnings that we got from one of our mentor, Luciano Guerra. We did Kizomba Open, took the
I
second
love Lucia.
place.
Lucia's amazing.
She's amazing. We also did Africa Danza, which is at the time which was the number one world competition, and same thing we had won the US round, and we didn't qualify for the final in Portugal. We went to Portugal, but there was two rounds and we lost at the first round. But after we won in LA for the US round, Lucia came to us and she told us, like now you are not just regular dancers anymore. You're gonna start wanting to do more, and you're gonna start wanting to teach, and you need to be mindful of not letting yourself being naturally attracted by all of the opportunities without understanding the responsibilities that you have. And I remember when she gave us this talk that was right after the competition, right after we won. And I think it's stuck in our head. And that's why we really wanted, when we started to teach, we really wanted to we had this passion for the dance and the music and the culture. I come from the French Caribbean, so the culture of Kizomba and Semba, the Angolan / Cape Verdean culture was very important for me because I knew how important my own cultures and Zouk music was for me. So we spent a lot of time studying Kizomba, studying Zouk, studying Afro Zouk, how the music connect over time and how the dance became what it became. And at the time I was watching every single YouTube video of the Kizomba dancers that was in the scene. At the time it was like a dozen of dancers, but I knew every single step that they would do. I would look and analyze every single move because I was so passionate about it. And I think it helped us actually when we started to teach, really understanding how to break down moves, how to learn fundamentals, how to teach also fundamentals and break them down. And of course, it didn't happen from one day to the other. Like the beginning was a bit shaky, we were so passionate about the dance and the music that we stayed very close and humble to making sure that we knew what we were giving people, rather than just letting the I guess the what would be the word, the letting the wins and the popularity that we had won kind of cover the mistake of teachers. I don't know if that was clear, but
I get you, man. You kind of like, I guess, like resting on your past laurels. Like,
yes, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
get you. I understand that, man. I definitely understand that, bro. Let me ask you this real quick, man. You've been dancing, for quite a long time now, man. Let me ask you this. What are some lessons that you've learned from dancing that you're able to translate to your everyday life?
Ooh, what are the lessons that I learned from dancing that I'm able to translate in my everyday life? At this time, in the current environment that we live in, I've realized how much dance is important for me. Beyond the physical stimulation, beyond the musical stimulation, it's also the psychological stimulation. I'm by myself. My family is in France and in the Caribbean. All of my friends are also quarantined. So when you spend 2 months by yourself and you go through a lot of challenges, I've been through a lot of challenges professionally over the past months. I've realized that music and dance are really a core element that keeps me going, that keeps me smiling. So that would be one lesson. The place of dance in someone's life cannot be measured. The other lessons I would say, like competing and being so strict and so how can I say that? Um, Basically, if you want to do something, if you want to become very good at something, in my case, at the time that was Semba, I wanted to become the best dancer in the US in Semba. Then you need to be very strict. You need to take it as much as it's an art. You need to take it as a sport. I always been a very big competitor, so I've had this spirit. I had this mindset, but I realized even more that I didn't know how to move, I didn't know how to dance, but because I was so strict with how I would train, having my broom with me every single night after work. I would be dancing with my broom. I would be dancing with my pillow when Maren will fall asleep. I would be dancing with my pillow and training, watching videos every single night, listening to the music all the time. Um, when you want to get to a certain level, it can be in Kizomba, in Semba, in Afro House, in Kuduro, in Urban Keys, in any type of dance. Those are the ones that I'm the closest with, but in any type of dance. If you want to compete, you need to take this as a real sport, as a real competition, and put yourself at the highest level you can. Don't be scared to mess up. Don't be scared to also do things that might not please other people. Just be mindful to respect what you were given, I would say. But don't be scared to try. You need to try and to mess up to be able to get to a point where it's actually starting to look like something nice. And from that, you will keep going and it would not look just nice, you would start looking amazing. So that I would say one of the important lessons that I've learned.
That's so true, man. Failure is a part of the process, right?
completely.
Yeah, yeah, that can be super super intimidating for many folk, myself included, man. That part of the process, but it is a required part.
Hmm.
So I definitely understand that, man. Let me ask you this, man. I kind of want to get into some advice for dancers, man. So for a dancer out there who they may be able, well, for anything, they are a beginner and anything, whether it be dancing or table tennis or running,
Hmm.
anything, man. And they feel like they're not getting better, like they're stuck
Hmm.
in this rut. Do
Yeah.
you have any words of wisdom or advice for them on how to get out of that?
Um, so the first thing, it happens to everybody. This feeling of being stuck is natural, because we have a natural habit of looking down to ourselves. When we learn something or when we do something, we always believe that it's not executed well enough. So it's something that it's normal, and like don't feel bad about it. It's part of the process. Now, in for ways to kind of overcome it, um, for me with Kizomba and Semba was to, first thing, open up to more people, ask more questions, train with more people, train with people that I had maybe not been attracted in their dance style. I did not really recognize myself in it, but it allowed me to see a different style and to maybe start seeing moves and step a different way that now I can kind of accaparate, that now I can grasp and incorporate in my dance to make it evolve. Don't be scared to try other dances. When we talk about, if I talk about Kizomba and Semba, you can try to dance samba. You can try to do some Afro house and kuduro, because those dances are going to enrich your foundation in Kizomba and Semba. Urban Keys is, I think, one of the best examples that we have in this Kizomba umbrella space. Urban Keys is as element from many dances. You would look at styles of dancers, urban key styles that would look very close to tango. Others would look very close to breakdance. Look very close to Afro or to hip hop dancers. So the fact that you try to grasp and get interest in some other arts, other dances, then it's naturally going to enrich your own dance, your own ability to move a certain way, and also to express yourself a certain way, a different way. The other thing, which for me is extremely important, but I can understand how it might not be as easy for other people, it's the music. Dancing Kizomba and Semba, if you really love Kizomba and Semba, that means that you've listened to Kizomba and Semba in all shapes and on form, and you've also tried to spend time understanding what the music means, where the music comes from, what are the elements of the music. Why? Because a music like Kizomba, Zouk, or any African musics, they use specific elements, they use specific instruments, and those instruments, they make you move a certain way. So if you can recognize in the music a certain instruments, now you can visualize these instruments and also express these instruments with specific moves. And naturally, this is going to change your way of dancing. Your way of dancing is going to go from a narrow to a much wider, free space by being much closer to, or that having a better understanding to those music's elements. So yeah.
That's perfect, man. You kind of spoke on musicality, which is
Mm-hmm.
super duper important, man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess real quick is I often ask this question, and I usually get the same answer. I'm curious, I ask, how does one improve their musicality. And I often hear the answer of, just listen to the music more. Is that something you agree with?
Um, I mean, ultimately, yes. The more you listen to the music, hopefully at some point you will start hearing things that you were not hearing before. But you won't find something if you're in the dark. Uh, So for me, more beyond just listening more to the music, it's not about the quantity, it's more about the quality of the listening. Okay, let me listen to Paulo Flores, okay, which is an Angolan singer, an amazing artist. And let just instead of me listening to him, let me actually watch some YouTube videos of him and his band playing. And now, as much as I'm listening to the music, I'm not only listening, I'm visualizing the band, I'm visualizing the instruments, and I can recognize sounds and associate them with instruments that maybe I could not before. So for me, it's not just about listening more, it's also listening in a different way and trying to maybe focus on the lyrics, maybe focus on the mood, maybe focus on the voice and the intonation of the voice. What I always say to students is you don't need to speak Portuguese to understand 90% of the songs that are sung by Kizomba singers. If you pay enough attention to the way they behave, to the way they sing, the tone of their voice, and recognize some word or some like intonations, then you will get the key of what the song is talking about. And from that moment, you've already enriched your musicality because you are not just listening to the music, but you are listening to all of the elements that are part of this music. And that's completely different. Something that we did a lot when I started was to mix songs. I would use I use a software that's called GarageBand to put songs together and mix them together, and that allowed me to actually analyze and understand the layers in the music. Oh, but a music is actually very simple. It's a bunch of layers one over the other, and you can kind of play with them. You can mute one, you can add one, and that compose a song. So from that moment, I was now able to understand that music is just layers of instruments or sounds, and I can maybe try to focus on a few or one single and try to see how it plays and how it makes me move. So you don't need a software to do that. You can just try to focus when you listen to the music on recognizing the drum. Okay, let me listen only to the drum for that song. Let me only focus to the drum. Then let me only focus to the guitar. And that's going to be a drastic change in the way you actually listen to the music.
Definitely. That's so true, man. And I kind of appreciate you saying that, man, because I feel like I often feel a disconnect when I'm
Mm.
listening to Kizomba songs because I don't
Mm-hmm.
speak Portuguese. So I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
so I understand that, bro.
I think the live experience is the best. Having the ability to see the band live. I've discovered singers like I've discovered a singer last summer that I've never heard before. That I heard before, but I didn't really enjoy her music until I see her live, and it changed. It changed everything. Seeing her singing live and having the band and how the band was behaving changed all of my perception. So I think if you get the ability to see a band, especially Kizomba and Semba band live, that's for me that's one of the best things that you can get. And also, if you can, just like go on YouTube, watch people dancing on the song, watch people in their natural environment. Kizomba is African dance. You go and type Kizomba na Rua or Kizomba, I don't know, any word. I need to think a little bit. You will find videos online that would showcase not the music per se, but people in their natural behaviors, eating, chilling together, and you will start now understanding how Kizomba play a place in their life, and now also how you can leverage this in your dance.
Okay, no, I understand that, bro. I definitely understand that, man. And I think that's, so I'm from America, man. I've grew up in America, man,
Hmm.
and so I've learned Kizomba in a dance school, and I think a lot of
Hmm.
times what myself and others who are from America, we may fail to realize is that in Angola or in other countries, man, Kizomba is not just something that you dance at the club. It's
Hmm.
just something that people do at parties, at house gatherings, and so
Hmm.
it's a little bit more than just a dance to them. It's
It's
a part of their
way
culture.
more.
It's a
It's
part of their
way
culture,
more.
man.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's way more than just a dance. The same way that Zouk is way more than just music for me. And I think that's one of the challenge for people who have not grown up with this connection with music. But for us, Afro-Caribbean, like music, like you were asking me those questions at the beginning, it plays a huge place in our life. And beyond the music, it's also like music is the core of many events, many experiences that we have. Weddings, anniversaries, gathering, family gathering, losses, all of these, like we have songs for different events, for different circumstances, carnivals, and naturally the music is driving our life to some degree. That's part of our daily habits. And what like you've had over the past years, you've had a lot of debates online about Kizomba and why people were always feeling some people, Angolan or Africans or Afro-Caribbean, feeling some type of way about how Kizomba is growing and the direction that Kizomba is taking to some degree, like because we know growing up with the music, any type of Afro music, that it is much more than just a music. It has a meaning. It has also experience. Like Kizomba and Semba moves, when you see like some move in the dance, they are actually daily moves, daily life moves that I would do like in Afro movement. I would grab something on the tree and now I make it a dance move. So it's more than just music, it's more than just dance. It's expressing our lives and it also expressing the good moments in our lives and the bad moments in our lives. And that's the key also. When you understand the lyrics, you will naturally get a much more humbling relationship with Kizomba, because now you pointing the finger at something that has a deeper meaning than just a song, just words. So yeah, yeah.
I definitely understand that, man. That's very, very true, bro. Let me let me ask you, a continuation to my original question, man.
Hmm.
For someone who is an intermediate dancer
Okay,
and they want to get to that advanced level, what
okay.
does it take for them?
They need to go back to the beginner level. An intermediate dancer might think that is foundation. That may be the case for some, obviously. But in my case, when I believe I was an intermediate dancer, I actually lack a lot in my foundations. My foundations were not there at all. Until this day, I still work the most on my foundation. When you become an intermediate dancer, it means that you have an understanding of the dance moves. You are able to evolve on the dance floor naturally and comfortably with all the moves that you've learned. It doesn't mean that you are executing those moves properly. And that's very often what people think they've reached. Oh, I'm an intermediate dancer, or I believe I'm an intermediate dancer. I know the fundamentals. The fundamentals are the most difficult part to grasp. You can learn a routine, you can learn a move, but learning to dance fundamentals is very challenging. In Kizomba and Semba, we tend to always say that this big like myth, which I don't know. I would say it's true, maybe it's not true, but we tend to say that virgula, retrocesso, which is one of the core key steps in Kizomba Semba, is the most difficult step. and it is a challenging step. You cannot, even at intermediate level, I can see you dance. I know that you are not an advanced level just by the way you are executing these steps. That's kind of how I'm going to draw the line. Can I see you do a virgula while you're dancing a nice one, like natural and free one? Most of the time, that would be a cha-cha step or shuffle step, which
Exactly.
is which is more mechanic than a virgula. A virgula, it's taking your whole body to execute a virgula. From the upper body, the way you turn, you leverage your chest and your shoulders to your feet. And I think when you are intermediate level, what you need to do now that you've accaparate, you know of the dance, is to go back and when you're in a social or when you're in a dance class, look and listen to the teachers talking about these fundamentals, drilling those fundamentals even more. While you might think that, oh, I know them, you will realize that you actually don't. And for you to move to the next level, it requires you to actually execute those fundamentals. And what it means to execute those fundamentals, um, in Semba and Kizomba, it is when your dance is so flowy, is so smooth that I actually can't see what's coming up. I can't really navigate into what you're trying to, where you're trying to go. That's to me an advanced dancer. When I can recognize the movement that you're doing and kind of breaking down into, yeah, that's step one, step A, step C, step B. When I can break it down that way, for me, that's you still kind of executing step one after the other. While when you are moving all at once, that's when you are an advanced dancer.
Okay, okay, I understand that, man. And that's often the the answer I get when I ask that question. People say, you know, the basics, the foundations are so important, man. And that so and I definitely understand that, man. So I definitely understand that. Let me ask you this last question, man. Can you give me one tip that can make anyone a better dancer immediately?
Immediately, wow. One tip that can make you a best dancer immediately. Rhythm, rhythm. You can teach anybody to dance if they have rhythm. If they don't have rhythm, then you need to go way back. You need to now focus on everything but steps and dance. You need to focus on synchronization, claps. You need to focus on body movements. I would say that if you have an understanding of rhythm, or if you realize that your rhythm is not there, but you understand that you're missing it and that you can activate it, then naturally you are going to become a better dancer. And rhythm, it's also a spectrum. I have rhythm to some degree, but I know that my rhythm is not perfect. So now in my dance, I try to improve that rhythm. And for me, the key of becoming even a better dancer is to improve my rhythm. So I would say for you to become a better dancer right away, you need to grasp the rhythm key better.
I gotta ask them, man. You say rhythm, man, but is that intertwined with musicality? And what I mean is that, do you improve your rhythm by listening, by consciously listening to music, as you said earlier, or how does one go about improving their rhythm?
So I think rhythm and musicality are two distinct things. Rhythm is just about understanding the, how can I put it? Rhythm is when you understand the mechanism or the patterns the it's when you recognize a pattern. It doesn't mean that it's a music. I can clap on the table. I'm not playing music per se. I'm just clapping, tapping on the table. It can be people honking on the street with a specific pattern. That's also a rhythm, which is not musicality per se. So when you can recognize the rhythm, the pattern, that's when you actually grasping the rhythm. Now, a pattern can be very simple, something like this, or it can be much more complex. And that's when the rhythm spectrum um, becomes wider. When you have to tackle a rhythm that is more complex, that has more noise, more elements to it, and you need to remove all of this noise to find those rhythms, and from that moment express those rhythms. So to come back to your question, how can someone go to understand rhythm? If that was, I'm not sure how you
Yeah, understand it or improve it.
that I would say it's a challenging question. It's going to depend to where the student is in terms of like his ability of hearing a pattern and recognizing the pattern, and how he's able to translate it in move. You have some. We've had an amazing student. Uh, he had an amazing musicality. He could hear and recognize the patterns, but he was not able to translate it in moves. But you could see how he was shaking his head, how he was singing the songs that he had caught the rhythm, that he could express it, but not in physical move. So that's a challenge, I think, for teachers, and I'm really far from being able to do this. I would really like to be able to find the key to teaching anybody in the world to understand rhythm and move on this rhythm. But it's different for every student. Some students are going to hear it and not express it. Some people are not able to hear it, so you need to go back to just simple things as clapping on a specific rhythm very slowly and try to make them clap at the same pace as you and build from that.
It sounds like or, at least what I heard though, man, is it really is just persistence. Kind of keeping that goal in mind, trying to stay with it.
It's definitely you need persistence. That's you won't do anything in life if you don't persist long enough. But it's like I mentioned before, it's also trying different things. Maybe the teacher that you were trying to learn from is not able to teach you the way you can understand. That's why, as we always say, you need to learn from as many instructors as you can, because you are going to get different perspective, and some are going to resonate, some won't. But instructors is going to give you something that you can take away. So maybe it is the instructors, maybe it is you also to try to change the way you learn. Okay, some people learn by visually, some people learn by listening, some people learn by copying, like doing. So maybe you need to try to learn a different way. And also maybe you need to be more patient and slow down. Slow down. I rush when I started to dance. I wanted to like do everything very fast, so I rushed, and my energy allowed me to kind of cheat to look very good, but every advanced instructors would see in me someone that didn't have his foundation well enough. So I had to slow down, go back to the foundations, slow down, go back home, and go slowly and learn slowly to actually get better in rhythm in that case.
I definitely understand that, man. Everyone, I imagine, is in a rush to get good. So yeah, that's something we all can relate to, is slowing down and focusing on the basics, man. I really wanna thank you, Steve, for taking time with you to talk to me, man.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for taking this time. I think what you're doing is amazing. I've watched a few videos of some friends. I've seen them
Okay.
posting. No, that's really great. I think that's very useful and helpful for our Kizomba scene. We always question how we can improve the scene, how we can help students get better. And I think that what you are doing today allows that it helps those people. So I'm very thankful and I thank you for doing this and taking your time today to ask those questions.
Bro, of course, man. And I really want to thank you, bro. Real quick before we close this out, man.
Uh-huh.
Do you have, I guess, any upcoming events or anything that you want to plug? Anything you want to share with the people?
Yes, yes. Farm Jam Kizomba Festival. So I went from student to competitors to teachers, now organizer. So I am with three other friends and partners, Maren, Lady Maren, Carla Villarreal, and Sumit. We organize a Kizomba Festival in Houston, Texas in January, every January since 2019 called Fam Jam Kizomba Festival. It's a family reunion. You come to learn, to bond, and to party. That's our motto. So we did the second edition this past January, which was amazing. So now we are working on the third edition. Obviously, the current climate make us very mindful of how we are going to organize the next edition. But we do plan to have a next Farm Jam. So that's something I wish everybody watching this and beyond would join us. If that's their first time, we'll be more than happy to welcome them as real family members. If that's the second or third time, they already know it is all about this family feeling. So we can't wait to have them back. So that would be January 2021, last weekend of January 2021.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. And real quick, tell me this, man. How can people get in contact with you? How can they reach out to you?
I'm mostly present on Facebook. That's the number one social media that I use. So Facebook, private message me. Yeah, text me on Facebook. I do have Instagram, so my Facebook is Steve Ciki, my Instagram is Steve Ciki. Otherwise, for any events, for any bookings, we can reach out to me via email, canikeysit@gmail.com. Can I CANIKIZIT@gmail.com. So that's how people tend to reach out to us for bookings or events or performances and so forth.
Okay, that's awesome, man. When I upload this, I'm gonna make sure I put all your contact information in the details, bro.
Sounds good. Thank you so much,
Hey, of
man.
course, man. Of course, man. So yeah, real quick, before we close this out, Steve,
Uh-huh.
is there anything you want to share with the people before we close out this episode?
Yes, I would just say keep dancing, especially in this time. I cannot tell you guys, I dance almost every day. I haven't danced this week, these past 2 days, but I dance almost every day by myself with my broom. It brings me a lot of peace, a lot of energy, and it also helped me see beyond the crisis that we are going, that things are um, on hold. They are not ending. Things are going to come back. We will be dancing again in the future. We will be together again in the future. So anything that you can do today to help you keep going, do not stop doing them. And if it's like me, dancing is one. Please, even if it's yourself, turn on the music, go on Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, whichever you use. Ask me for some music. If you need some music, I will be more than happy to give you some and dance by yourself.
Hey, that's so true, man. Steve, I think that is a wonderful way to close out this episode of the Two Left Feet podcast. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you, man.
Hey,
And
bro, no doubt.
looking forward to see you at some point.
Hey, I can't wait, bro.
Right? Sounds
Hey,
good.
all right. So take it easy, Steve, man.
You too. Bye
Yes,
bye.
sir.
That's all it is.
Hey everyone, if you made it this far to all to the end of the video, I want to thank you so much. Um, my overall goal with making these interviews and these episodes is to give a voice to dancers, to give them a platform to speak their story. So if this is of value to anyone, then that means the world to me. My overall goal is to give value to the dance community. So if you find no value in this, then I urge you to please let me know where I can improve on. I truly want to, just give value and content to the dance community. So please let me know how I can improve, where I'm messing up, because to be 100% honest with you, I'm learning along the way as I do this. I truly am. So to be able to interact with the dance community, it means the world to me, because it gives me feedback and it lets me know what I'm doing right, where I can improve upon, what I'm doing wrong, which I feel like might be more important. So please, if you all could comment and just let me know what you think, it means the world to me, because that feedback just helps me improve. So please comment as well. Please like and subscribe. That means a lot as well. But I want to say thank you so much for just watching this, because it means the world to me. I want to take you on this journey of the Two Left Feet podcast. I'm very excited for it. So once again, thank you so much.